Hello friends, hope you are well. Techman Pat here. Today we're going to be talking about the Ender 3 SI 3D printer from Creality. Here it is in all its glory. Let's roll the intro. So setting it up is an absolute breeze. It is probably the easiest thing I've ever done with a 3D printer. Now, I haven't put out any 3D printer content on this channel for a long time. I've had a 3D printer for 2 years. It was also an Ender 3 Pro with a lot of modifications. So I'm going to talk to you about those modifications that I did to that printer, and I'm going to talk about why this printer right here is probably the best printer to get you started from like zero to hero and get printing things like this, which has been going on for 69 hours and 43 minutes, and there's about 20 more hours to go to print this beautiful replica of the moon. So big thanks to Creality for sending me this Ender 3 SI for review and videos like this. But just a note, I have purchased my own Creality Ender 3 Pro in the past, and I wanted to talk to you through the upgrades I made to that to get it anywhere close to this. So Ender 3 Pro is a great product in itself, but it is an older generation. It is something that has sort of over the years gotten quite old in the sense of the technology it uses and the way it's designed and some of the features that it has. And over the years, I put in multiple hundreds of dollars to upgrade it. I changed the motherboard inside that to make it quieter. Yes, the modules that ran the stepper motors made really loud noises like a dial-up modem, and it was really frustrating to have it on here. You can hear it right now, and the only thing you can hear is actually the fan. The next thing I upgraded was the extrusions here. I made it a direct extruder. In the past, you'd have your bundle of plastic right here on the side feeding into another motor that would then push it through a plastic pipe into the extruder, which would have the heat and that would melt, putting a distance of about this much separation between the point where it's actually pushing the plastic and the point where it's melting. And that distance created a lot of problems. You couldn't, for example, use very plasticky, squishy material to make, squishy things like phone silicon cases or things like that. You can now with this direct extrusion system. It also meant that the prints were just not as good. The flow would be irregular. It just wasn't perfect, but it did the job at the time, and things just slowed down because of it. Direct extrusion is the best thing ever. So after the motherboard, $120, the extruder was $180. This module right here was the next $100. This made that the bed could be leveled automatically without having to manually do it with a piece of paper or some metal. It saved a lot of time, but it also made the prints much better. Your first layer, the most important layer, stuck every time using this module. And this SI comes with it built in, and it comes with the extruder built in. Now, lastly, the upgrade that I couldn't make to my previous Ender 3 Pro was 2 motors on the sides here. As you can imagine, if you have one motor that moves this whole thing up and down, the left side can sag. And that's what happened with my one. And that meant that this surface over here was always a little bit skewed because of this bit sagging. What they've done this time is they put in 2 motors on the side, and this bit right here moves equally up and down, making the bed really good at being flat. Otherwise, you always ran into this problem that one side of your first layer was higher up than the other because you'd have to account for the drop in this bar as this device went over. And the thing with metal and the thing with using this for a long time, it would skew more and more as a print went on, and it was quite problematic. They fixed that really, really well. So taking that into account, I put in over $300 on top of my $350 purchase of the printer, making the whole thing about $650. And yet, at the same price of this, which is around $650, if you can get it in stock, it didn't come close to this beautiful machine right here. The things that are obviously missing was the second engine to keep things balanced. All of a sudden, it's perfect. That motor just solved such a big problem in printing. The next thing is this bit right here that happened to me many, many times. Now this module right here stops the print if your plastic runs out. It's a fantastic addition to save time for you. There's a couple of other features like runaway heat protection built into the motherboard, which is fantastic, and that comes standard across the whole Creality line. The other thing is this. I really love the fact that we get the little drawer here, and you've got your SD card reader, USB-C, and you've got your screen on the side. This screen is now color, and it has a lot more information. The whole motherboard actually has more storage on it. One thing that was a problem in the previous ones is if you want to put a new firmware on this for new features of new additions of motors or things like that, stepper motors, you would have to load a whole new Marlin firmware. And that was a problem when you had a limited amount of space on the motherboard in regards to the actual memory. And so you'd have to delete features, literally line by line in code, so it could fit on here. It was less than a megabyte from memory, or maybe 8 megabytes, something ridiculously small. That's not a problem anymore. It's big enough to load any firmware, and the guys at Creality do say, hey, you can do it if you want, you can upgrade it. And the cool thing is you don't even need to open it up to upgrade the firmware anymore. It can be done by the USB-C plug right here, as opposed to in the past, you'd have to take this whole thing apart and then plug in a 8-pin plug that translates to a little USB thing, plug it into a computer, download some drivers, and then go from there. You don't have to do that anymore, which is fantastic. The other thing that the Ender 3 Pro, and I guess I'm comparing it to, they had an external power supply on the side. It is now all built into here, making the whole unit a lot more compact. So let's talk about the SI version, the Ender 3 SI. Is this the best 3D printer I've ever used? Yes, it is. As you can see, this print has been going on for nearly 70 hours in 9 minutes, and it is mind-blowingly good. This is not the first thing I printed, but it is one of the biggest ones I'll be printing at 100 hours in total. This thing right here was the second print I did. It was a bigger print, and it is beautiful. There were obviously some supports I used to make the nose stand out, but this dog came out really, really nicely. The settings I used are completely standard. I didn't mess around with any of the temperatures. 60 for the bed degrees, and of course 200 for the PLA material. And you can check that on the actual PLA material, how many degrees it suggests. I used to use 210 in my older one because it was never quite right at 200. It was too low, I think, but I believe it was because the hot end was just terrible at keeping the heat. This one here has been perfect at 200, and it keeps the heat right on the money. Now, I did not have to do any setup at all. I loaded up the software, put in a G-code onto the provided memory card, I put it in, pressed print. That is the beauty of 3D printers this generation. You can just get started straight away. So is this a good starter printer? Absolutely it is. At $650, it is expensive, but I just can't fathom going back to what I was using before. The instructions are really clear. There's only about 10 screws anyway to put this together. The cables were really easily plugged in, and everything was marked very well. You don't have to mess around too much. I'm very impressed at this package. It's a set up and go. So expect more videos like this. I'm sorry for the length of it. I just wanted to talk about it. I was really excited about how far Creality and the Ender line of products have come, and this is just absolutely mind-blowingly exciting and cool. So would I recommend this product? Absolutely. I cannot fathom going back to the old way of having to upgrade everything, and getting this package all in one really saves me a lot of time to just go straight into printing. If you're not technically minded and want to fiddle with things, this is the one to get. If you're going to go for the older models because they're potentially half the price and then you're going to upgrade them slowly, you're just going to deal with what they have in regards to the way they print and their quality, and then you want to tinker around, that's great. You're going to learn a lot, and I learned a lot. And so over the next couple of weeks, couple of months, I'm going to share more videos about this Ender 3 SI, how it's going, what I'm printing, and some of the things I found really cool and interesting about it. I've had a lot of experience going from something kind of not terrible, but just upgrading it. Now I'm sort of going, holy crap, I can print whatever I want on this. What can I do? So friends, let me know your questions below. Really looking forward to sharing this stuff with you, and I'll chat to you there in the comments below. Make sure to like this video if you did, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching, and bye!